Okay, so today we're going to go over Love and Happiness by Al Green. We'll break it up into three different sections. The first being the intro, which also has the chords to the chorus. Then we'll move on to the verse, and then finally the cool horn lines that happen throughout the song. Let's get started, shall we? Okay, so the intro will start off on the 7th fret of the 2nd string with your ring finger, and you're going to strike it and immediately slide into the 9th fret. That's going to set your first finger up pretty nicely on the 7th fret of the 1st string, then the 9th fret with your ring finger, and then you're going to strike that note again before you slide into the 11th fret. Okay, so let's just review that really quick. It's 1 and 2 and 3. Okay, at that point your first finger is going to just hop up to the 2nd string, it's 9th fret, and then hop up again to the 3rd string, 9th fret, before you go back down to the 8th fret on that same string. And that's it for as far as the single notes go. After that, it's just chords that are basically the chorus. So again, to recap, that's going to go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and okay. Now, relative to where you are right now with your first finger, you're going to put your ring finger 1 fret behind it. Okay, so you have to kind of switch really quick. That's where your ring finger will go for the first chord. Your first finger will go on the 6th fret of the 4th string, and your middle finger will go on the 7th fret of the 5th string. That makes a dominant 7 chord, technically an E7 chord. The way I like to think about it is like if you bar your ring finger, you know, it's a classic funk chord, but right now we're only using strings 5, 4, and 3. So that's the first chord. The second chord will slide back a half step to E flat 7 before it resolves to A flat 7, or I'm sorry, not 7, just A flat minor. Okay. Now strumming for all of this is going to be important. Essentially, we're going down on the numbers and up on the ands. And when you do that, your arm sort of acts like an old school metronome, like a pendulum. It's keeping time the entire time. So if you don't happen to play on a downstroke, for instance, the A flat minor chord, we'll start on the and of 4, and then it'll skip over 1 and it'll skip over 3. So, you know, you don't even question if you go down and then come back up and skip over on the way back up. But that same logic applies to downstrokes. Anyway, so we're starting on the E7. It's going to go 1, 2, up. Okay, so there's a little bit of a hiccup right before you move back down a half step on B3. So it's 1, 2, 3, and. So I did an up on that quick little hiccup, and then 3 and. Okay. Now, again, the next time you're going to strike the chord is on the and of 4, so you'll need to do a ghost strum past that. So just this whole measure is 1, 2, 3, and 4, and. Okay. Now let's take a look at the A flat minor. So the A flat minor is, again, it's starting on the and of 4, and it's going to hold through 1 and hold through 3, but essentially it's just nonstop. So 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. Okay? So those chords together are going to go 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. Okay. Now it's going to do that same thing again, but there are horn hits this time. So you're going to strike that A flat minor on the and of 4, but instead of keeping it flowing, it's going to be playing mostly off beats throughout that next measure. So it's going to go 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. And, okay, so you got up, 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 down. Okay, so the whole part of the chords section is going to go 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. Okay, so I'm stopping that A flat minor chord by just relaxing the pressure. So, okay, so all I'm doing is just squeezing, not squeezing, squeezing, not squeezing. Okay, so that's the entire intro. Let's take a look at it all together. So it's going to go 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. Okay, and then at that point you would step into the verse. Okay, so let's check out the verse for Love and Happiness. It's going to start on a B chord, okay, or C flat chord, however you want to think of it. We're technically in A flat minor, which would make that a C flat chord, but it's just easier to think of it as a B chord. Forget about technicalities for a second. So the first three chords that we're going to play in the verse are actually keeping this basic triad on top, this A-shaped triad. Okay, so your ring finger can bar strings 2, 3, and 4 at the 4th fret. Again, you're making this A-shaped version of a B chord. And then it's going to just take your first finger off and reveal the open 5th string. So now it becomes like a B7 chord over the flat 7. And really what it's doing, it's walking down to the 6. And now you have an A flat minor chord. Now, this was the A flat minor chord we went over before. This is more of a jazzier version of it. And I tend to grab this at this moment in time during the song just because you can keep your ring finger there. It's pretty comfortable. But right after that, it's going to go to a G flat chord. And then I'll resolve back to the normal A flat minor chord. So just to cover all that, it's going to go, you're sort of droning the root. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and that's the basic strum pattern. So again, it's going to go 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and so root, chord, root, 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 chord, root. Then you take off your first finger and do the same thing. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1. Okay, so when we get to that A flat minor chord, it's going to go 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1. So notice I'm still doing those ghost drums down. It's because it's and 3, and 4. Okay, so it's 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So basically what it's doing, it's keeping that going, but you have to go down to the G flat chord. So again, that section is 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4. And then at that point, I'm sorry, it's supposed to go to the G flat there, but at that point, it goes into another section. But before we get there, we should probably review. So it's going to go 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, up, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and now the next chords are going to go D, A-shaped D at the 5th fret, C sharp minor, a fret behind it at the 4th fret, and then B. Okay, so it's going to go 1 and 2 and 3, 4. Okay, one more time. 1 and 2 and 3. And there's a little riff that happens in between. Right where your first finger is, it's just going to hop up to the 6th string. Okay, you're going to strike the 2nd fret and then hammer your ring finger onto the 4th fret, and then play the 2nd fret of the root of the B chord again. So in context, it's going to go 1, 1, and 2, and 3, and 40, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 40, and, okay? So the entire verse altogether will go 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 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 1, 2, and 3, and 40, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 40. The first time it does that, it only does that twice, and 40, and twice, before it goes back into the verse. The second time it'll do it three times, yes, and then it'll go into the chorus instead. So that's the whole thing, okay? And let me demo the whole thing right now for you. Okay, finally we're going to cover the horn lines. Most of it is being pulled from this basic minor pentatonic scale that I'm sure most of you know if you're trying to learn this song. However, the third one will vary slightly, but essentially that's what we're pulling from. Yeah, let me play that first one for you and we'll break it down. So it's going to go 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm alternating picking, which means I'm going down on the numbers and up on the ands. And if you notice, I've been saying a lot of ands, so it's going to be a lot of upstrokes, okay? So it's going to start on the second string, 4th fret with your first finger. You're going to go down, then with your pick you're going to go up on the 6th fret of the 3rd string, then back down on the 4th fret of the 2nd string, okay? Down, down, 2 E, okay? Then it's going to go 7th fret with your pinky on the 2nd string, and then with the downstroke, and then up on the 4th fret again. So that whole phrase together is going to go 1, 2 E and 3 and, or 1, down, up, okay? Now, after that, it's all, pretty much all upstrokes, all on the end. So it's gonna go 1, 2 E and 3 and 4, and on the 6th fret of the 3rd string, and on the 4th fret, and on the 6th fret, and on the 2nd string 4th fret, okay? So you have 1, 2 E and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Okay, I usually leave that note staccato at the end. I don't know why I let it ring out, but it did. The second half of it is basically going to be the same. It's kind of a call and response. All the same up until there, and then you have and 40 and. So that's going to be up on the 4th fret of the 3rd string, down, up, down, or 40 and on the 4th string. So ring finger on the 6th fret, first finger on the 4th fret, back to the ring finger on the 6th fret. So again, the whole thing is 1, 2 E and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 E and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, that happens a couple different times. That's horn line number 1. Horn line number 2 is, or actually I might be getting this confused in when they come into play, but there's 2 other horn lines. Okay, so we'll cover the next one, which I believe is 1, 2 E and a 3 and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and... Okay, so this one, although technically that note is here, and you could play it in the position, I don't know, there's something nice about sliding it. Okay, so again, I mean, it's basically outlining that minor triad right there. Okay, so down, up, 2 E and a ring finger on the 6th fret of the 4th string, first finger on the 4th fret of the 3rd string. Again, just straight 16th notes, down, up, same 4th fret on the 2nd string. Okay, so down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Now, again, I'll recommend sliding your pinky from the 7th fret into the 9th fret twice on the 2nd string, but it actually sounds even hipper if you turn those into octaves. Okay, in fact, you could turn all these horn lines into octaves. That's kind of a nice little trick. You know, if you're just playing single notes, it's nice to fill it out. You can kind of double it up like that with octaves. Octave shapes, for those who don't know, on 6 and 4, you skip a string. It's kind of like a power chord shape. You're skipping a string and then playing the 4th. In this case, we're playing the 4th, but it could be 3 and 5, 4 and 6. You always skip a fret in between, okay? Same deal on 5 and 3. Skip a string, skip a fret. Strings 4 and 2 and 3 and 1, they actually skip 2 frets in between. You're still skipping 1 string. Okay? So those are the octave shapes. So again, that second horn line, the way I like to play it is 1, 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 and 2 and so I'm sliding those 1 and 2 and striking the downbeats every time. finally, number 3 is the one that deviates from the pentatonic slightly. Instead of going through it, it kind of just rests on the 9. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and okay. So that's the 9th scale degree of the chord. So it's basically the pentatonic, but just adds it. It's only 3 notes. It's a cool chord line anyway. So it's gonna go 1, 2, 3, and 4. I totally screwed it up. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And, okay, so down, down, up, down, up. Again, you could totally octavate this, and or 1, 2, slide. I like the way that sounds. So, you know, it depends on what kind of the horns are doing, you know, what they're doing, it depends on what they're doing, you know, how they're inflecting. And I think the slide, it captures it pretty nicely. So you're striking on, I guess it's the 6th fret and the 9th fret of the 4th and 2nd string, and immediately sliding and sliding back. So 2 slides in a row. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and okay. And there you go. That's all Love and Happiness.